All right, I'm a little late because I was reading up through December 31st to finish my books for 2024. But here are my top and bottom reads of 2024. So I actually DNF'd two books this year, which was a big thing for me, and I'm really gonna try to hopefully read better books this upcoming year, but also be conscious that I don't have to finish books that I don't enjoy and that make me mad or really take me out of reading, because reading is supposed to be enjoyment. I do learn a lot because I do read a lot of nonfiction, but that was kind of part of my reading goal, is to make sure that I am taking care of myself and reading. So let's look at the not so great books first, and then I'll jump into some of my favorite reads. So the books that I DNF'd, and I really should have DNF'd more. I DNF'd Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker, and that is about her struggles with sobriety. She did end up developing her own sobriety app, and then she sold it, but she was really harping on AA, and I really disliked it. So to the point that I was like, this is helpful to other people, and you're telling them not to do it. So I felt like it was just disruptive and destructive for her to do that. So I did not finish that book. The other book that I did not finish was The Unfortunate Side Effects of Magic and of Heartbreak and Magic, and that's by Brianne Randall. It was advertised as Gilmore Girls meets Practical Magic. She is a first-time author, and so I purchased the book from her to help support her, and I really couldn't get through. I think I got halfway through and I finally had to give up. I felt like there was stuff that was missing between the relationship and the main character and her love interest. They hadn't talked for years, and it was just like he shows up and they're like, hey, we're cool again, right? Um, yeah, I didn't feel like it was Gilmore Girls Meet Practical Magic. It felt more like that Sarah Michelle Gellar movie where she puts her emotions in the foods, and there's a little crab thing in there. I felt like it was more like that than the two that it was said to reference. So those are the two that I quit. I was like, I can't do this anymore with those. Again, I wish I would have DNF'd the following books because they also irritated me. The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. I did put this in a video of my earlier reads. I read this in July. It is a 27-hour audiobook, and I listened to most of it on double speed. I wish I would have just listened to the podcast I listened to before it, who also said it was an awful book. It started off good because it started off with like the history of the internet, which I found interesting, and then it talks about outsourcing and globalization, and then Friedman just goes on a big old rant for like an hour, 2 hours. So I had to double speed that in order to finish it, but I should have just put it down. There's a couple other books that I really should have DNF'd. If you saw my video of my fourth quarter reads, here are two of them. Out of My Mind by Sharon M. Draper is a story about the main girl. She has cerebral palsy, which I like reading about people with disabilities, and I think it's good to put them as your main characters because they're so rarely in books. But this book made me so mad that I like hate read it, and it's about a 7-hour audiobook, so I was listening to it, but I should have nixed it because it just made me really, really irritated. There's a couple other that I really wish that I would have just put down. The Unschooling Handbook by Mary Griffith. I kind of saw what I was getting into. I really wanted to give it a chance to learn more about this type of education, and it was awful. So that also made me pretty angry as well. So those are, I would say, my bottom three reads of the ones that I actually finished because I did DNF the two books. I had a pretty good reading year though, so here are my top three reads of 2024. Probably one of my favorite reads was Sold. That was the first book that I finished in 2024, and that is by Patricia McCormick. And she is a journalist, and she wrote a young adult fiction book about Nepalese girls being sold into sexual slavery, which is a real thing that happens. Her book, Sold, is one of the most banned books that are out there. Again, it's kind of a middle school grade book about a really awful topic, But, we'll stop writing about it when people stop doing it. So it's really well written. It's heartbreaking. Um, and so, I mean, it's hard to say that you enjoyed a book about this type of topic, but I think it made me really aware. I knew stuff like this, stuff like this is going on, but they give you numbers and they put names to it and stories to it. So it is fiction, but it is based off of her research, but it is just really, really well written. And then in that same month, I read What My Bones Know, and that is by Stephanie Fu, and that is a memoir of her like abusive childhood and neglectful childhood and how that has affected her as an adult. And that she used to work for NPR. That was beautifully written as well. She does the audiobook, and there's a lot of detail and information in it. So it was greatly written, very tragic, very emotional. And then probably one of my better series is the Warrior Girl Unlocked. And this is Angeline Boulley, this just submitted that I will read anything this woman writes. This is in the Firekeeper's Daughter's world, so we do see some of the same characters. It takes place years after the Firekeeper's Daughter. So you do see, again, some of those same characters. Our two main characters are twins, and we do learn a different aspect of the tribe's history. It does talk about reclamation and kind of getting back, the things that have been put in museums from these people who are deeply spiritual and think that their ancestors are not moving on because they're locked in museums. So that was a really great informational book, on top of it being a mystery, a fiction, great characters. She is a fantastic writer. So I'm hoping that she writes something else for this New Year's, so that way I can put it on my list. And those are my top and bottom reads of 2024. Hopefully next year is better. If you really, really enjoyed a book, please put it down in the comments below. I would love to put it on my TBR list for 2025. I'm looking to have a better reading year. And I will see you soon.